There is a number sitting inside your Social Security record right now that decides the size of every single check you will ever receive. And for millions of Americans, that number is wrong. It is too low, and the Social Security Administration is never going to call you to fix it. If you were born before 1961 and you are already collecting Social Security, or you are within a few years of claiming, listen to this very carefully, because the mistake I'm about to describe is silent. It is permanent the day you claim, and it is quietly costing some people more than $26,000 over the course of their retirement. And the reason it matters most for your generation is simple. Your record stretches back decades, into the 1970s, the 80s, the 90s, and the further back an error sits, the more likely it is that nobody ever caught it. The agency calculates your benefit from your lifetime earnings record, and that record, the official ledger of every dollar you ever earned, has errors in it far more often than anyone admits. Today, Mark is going to show you exactly how the wrong number gets in, the 4 situations where it happens to ordinary people, and the 3 steps that decide whether you catch it in time or lose that money for good. Stay through to step 3. It is the step almost nobody takes, and it is the difference between a check that is right for the rest of your life and a check that is short every single month until the day you die. Before we get into it, if you are watching this and you are not subscribed, do that right now and turn on the bell. The government is not going to warn you about the money it owes you, and it is not going to explain the rules that quietly cost you, so somebody has to, in plain English, before it hits your family. That is exactly what this channel is built to do. Let us start with how your check is actually calculated, because once you understand this, everything else makes sense. The Social Security Administration takes your entire working life, indexes your wages for inflation, and then picks out your highest 35 years of earnings. It adds those 35 years together, divides by the number of months in 35 years, and that average becomes the foundation of your monthly benefit. Here is the part that matters. It is always 35 years. If you have a year that is missing from your record, or a year where the wages are reported too low, that year does not just get skipped. A 0 or a shrunken number gets pulled into the average instead. And every dollar that average drops, your monthly check drops with it for the rest of your life. And it is worse than a simple one-for-one cut because of how the formula works. The agency runs that lifetime average through a set of brackets. It pays back a high percentage of the first slice of your average, a smaller percentage of the next slice, and a smaller one above that. A lower average does not just cost you in one bracket. It pulls money out across the whole calculation. And then the cost of living raises every year after that are figured on the smaller number too. So a single blank year does not just shrink one check, it shrinks the base that every future raise is built on. The mistake compounds quietly for as long as you live. Let me make that real. Imagine a woman named Maria. 1 year of her career, she earned $54,000, but because of a paperwork error that year, never made it onto her record. That single missing year lowered her monthly benefit by about $112. $112 a month does not sound like a catastrophe until you do the math across a 20-year retirement. $112 a month for 240 months is more than $26,800. Gone. Not because she did anything wrong, but because a number on a government ledger was blank and nobody told her to look. And Maria only had 1 bad year. Picture someone with 3. 3 years in the 70s or 80s where the wages came in low, or under a maiden name, or never posted at all. Those errors stack on top of each other, and the lifetime shortfall can climb well past $50,000 across a long retirement. The cruel part is that the people most likely to have these gaps are exactly the people who moved between jobs, who took time out of the workforce, who were self-employed for a stretch, or who changed their name. In other words, ordinary working people living ordinary lives. Now here is the scale of this problem, and it is bigger than almost anyone realizes. The Social Security Administration keeps something called the Earnings Suspense File. Think of it as the government's lost and found for wages. It is where the money goes when an employer reports earnings, and the agency cannot match those earnings to a worker's record. As of the most recent audit by the agency's own Inspector General, that file held more than $1.9 trillion in unmatched wages going back to the 1930s, and roughly 8.5 million new items get added to it every single year. The payroll taxes were paid, the work was done, but the credit never landed on the worker's record. And the agency does not send you a letter that says, "We think some of this might be yours." The only way you will ever find out is if you go and look. Now here's the history that explains why so many people are walking around with a wrong number and have no idea. For most of the last century, there was no easy way for a regular person to see their own earnings record. The online account at the agency's website, where you can pull up your full history with a few clicks, has only existed in a useful form for a little over a decade. Millions of seniors retired and started collecting without ever once checking the ledger their entire benefit was built on. They trusted that it was right. And the truth is, the agency has never had any obligation to find you, audit your file, and point out what is missing. The system was built to process what employers send in, not to chase down what they got wrong. Think about how many hands your wages pass through over a 40-year career. Every employer, every payroll clerk, every time a company changed its accounting software or got bought out or went under, each one of those was a chance for a digit to be transposed, a name to be misspelled, a number to be entered wrong. For somebody born before 1961, that is decades of opportunities for a small clerical mistake to land in your file and sit there silently until the day you claim. Some of those old errors can still be fixed. Some of them, as you will hear in a moment, are now locked in forever. The only way to know which is to look, and most people never have. Now here are the 4 situations where this money gets left behind. Listen carefully for yours. Situation 1. A year shows a 0, or a number far lower than you know you earned. This is the most common one. It can happen because an employer reported your wages under the wrong Social Security number, or made a typing error, or filed late. It can also happen, harmlessly, because of the normal lag between the time the IRS receives your most recent earnings and the time the agency posts them. So a very recent year sitting at 0 may simply be a delay. But you cannot tell the difference until you look, and if you claim during that gap, you can lock in the lower number. Situation 2. You changed your name and never updated it with the agency. This one hits women especially hard. You got married or you got divorced, and your last name changed. But the correction was never made with Social Security. So for years, your employer reported wages under a name that no longer matched your card, and those wages slid straight into that suspense file instead of onto your record. Situation 3. You were self-employed at some point, and the income never made it onto your record. When you work for an employer, your wages reach the agency automatically. When you work for yourself, that income only reaches your record through your tax return, specifically through the self-employment schedule. If it was never filed or filed wrong, the agency has a 0 for that year, even though you worked the whole time and earned a living. Situation 4, and this is the most expensive one. You assume it is fine, so you never check, and then you claim. The day you file for benefits, the number gets locked in. Doing nothing is the most common and most expensive mistake of all, because once the check starts, a wrong record quietly takes money out of every payment, and most people never connect the smaller check to the blank year from decades ago. Here are the 3 steps to make sure that does not happen to you. Step 1. Log in and read your record line by line. Go to ssa.gov/myaccount and create a free account if you do not already have one. It takes about 10 minutes and you will need your Social Security number, your date of birth, and a way to verify your identity. Pull up your full earnings statement and go down the list 1 year at a time. Write down every year that shows a 0, or a number that looks too low, or a year you know you worked but do not see. This costs you nothing, and it is the single most important thing you will do this week. Step 2. Gather your proof for every year that looks wrong. The agency will not just take your word for it. You need your W-2 forms, your federal tax returns, or, and this is the powerful one, a certified wage and income transcript from the IRS, which you can request for free using Form 4506-C. That transcript is the IRS's own independent record of what your employers reported, and the agency is required to accept it as proof, even if the employer is long out of business or refuses to cooperate. Pay stubs alone are not enough. Get the transcript. Step 3 is the step almost nobody takes, and it is the one that actually fixes the money. You file Form SSA 7008, the Request for Correction of Earnings Record. You can download it at ssa.gov/forms or pick it up at any local field office. You write your name exactly as it appears on your Social Security card, you list each year in dispute, you state what the record shows now and what it should show, and you attach your proof. Mail it or hand deliver it, and get a date-stamped receipt. Then call the agency at 1-800-772-1213 and say these exact words. I have filed Form SSA 7008 to correct my earnings record, and I need to confirm it was received and get a case number. The agency is required to send you written acknowledgement within 30 days, and a decision usually comes within 60 to 180 days. Longer if they have to contact an old employer to verify the wages. Keep a copy of everything you send, And keep that date-stamped receipt somewhere safe, because if the year you are fixing is close to its deadline, that receipt is your proof that you filed in time. And before I bring this all together for you, because this next part has a clock on it, do me one favor. If this has already shown you something you did not know, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell right now. It costs you nothing, and it is the only way the next change to these rules reaches you before it quietly hits your family. Here is the clock, and it is the reason you cannot put this on a list and forget about it. The law gives you a limited window to correct any year's earnings, exactly 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days after the end of that year. After that, the record becomes what the law calls conclusive, which means the agency treats it as final, and getting it changed after that requires proving fraud, or a mechanical error by the agency, or a late filing by your employer. A narrow door that is hard to open. For wages earned in the year 2022, that window already closed back in April of 2026. It is gone. For wages earned in 2023, the window closes on April 15, 2027. If you find an error in a year that is still open, the month that window shuts, that money is locked away for good. Let me bring this together. Your Social Security check is built on your highest 35 years of earnings. That record has errors in it far more often than people think, and the agency is never going to call you to fix it. So here's what you do. 1. Log into ssa.gov/myaccount and read your earnings record line by line. 2. For every year that looks wrong, get your proof, ideally a certified wage and income transcript from the IRS. 3. File Form SSA 7008 for any year still inside the correction window, and follow up by phone to get your case number. Take one of those steps today. And then send this video to one person you know who is collecting Social Security, or who changed their name when they married, or who was ever self-employed. There is a very good chance their record has a blank year in it that nobody has ever caught, and a few minutes of looking could mean a bigger check for the rest of their life. That is what this channel is here for. Subscribe and turn on the bell. Mark will see you in the next.